We in for a good one tonight. We are in for a good one tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Randy Wilson podcast. I am very excited today to have two guests with me that I know that the audience is really going to enjoy. Two leaders who work in education. I have to the right of me, Mr. John Bibbs. John Bibbs is a native here in Richmond, Virginia. He is the executive director of the Richmond Preparatory Academy Christian School. Did I say that correctly?
It's good enough for me.
It's good enough? Yeah. John Bibbs has been operating in this role for the past 10 years. And if you know anything about Richmond, you are familiar with Richmond Preparatory. One of the things John and I was talking about before, it's just amazing that the history and the culture that he inherited this. He's following right behind the steps of his mother, who founded the school. I want to say 1983.
Yes,
I may be wrong.
That's it.
1983. It's just amazing. One of the that I found one of the most interesting stories in moving to Richmond 16 years ago was learning about this school from some of the women in the community who was, I guess, his mother's peers. To the left of me, I have Antoine Green, education reform specialist, who is very active throughout the state of Virginia on behalf of charter schools and education, period. Antoine Green is the former he was the co-founder and former CEO of the Patrick Henry Charter School. I may be wrong when I say this, but the Patrick Henry Charter School was the first charter school in Virginia or Richmond?
First one in Richmond, the first elementary charter school in Virginia.
Yes. And Antoine Green has done a lot of things in his career as it pertains to leadership. He was the youngest ever president of the Black Crusade, the Crusade for Voters. The political branch of the NAACP. Antoine has worked in politics, he's lobbied, and he's just very active throughout the Richmond community. So I'm glad to have both of these men with me today as we talk about education. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
I also would be remiss if I didn't mention that Mr. John Bibbs over here is also a very successful recording artist. For the listeners out there who follow me, and I know I have a strong art community who is following me right now, John Bibbs has performed with Musiq Soulchild, Avant. He's also done things with the Clips here in Virginia, Pusha T and Malice. And so there's, one of the things I want to highlight with the podcast is that it's much more it's much more to my guest than just their titles. They're much more diverse than that. These are men. These are leaders of our community. Believers in Christ. There's a lot more to these men. So, guys, I appreciate you all joining in here.
Thanks for having me.
You did a really good job from the beginning, just kind of engaging in conversation. I think that was a really natural way to bring this in. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure that you all are going to bring a lot to the conversation today as we get into discussing education. This podcast specifically keeps culture and society as the primary context of all conversation. And so as we engage in conversation today about education here in Virginia, I want you to keep that in mind, that I want you to come from your experience, but your professional experience, but at the same time, your experience as a black man, as a student, as now a leader in the education realm, because I want to get into, talking about testing. There's a lot of different type of schools. We have public schools, we have private schools, we have Christian schools, we have charter schools. And a lot of people are not familiar with what the pros and cons and differences of all those things are. So I'd rather start with you, Antoine, here on that, because you are really big in the charter school movement, and maybe you can start there, because I think everyone knows what a public school is.
Right. And charter school is a public school, so it's very similar, in the sense that we draw kids, from all over a particular locality. It's tuition free. I guess the one big distinction I would make about public charter schools and your traditional public schools, charters have more flexibility in terms of what they can implement inside the classrooms. A lot more freedoms, a lot more autonomy for school leaders and school teachers to really personalize and really try to create an atmosphere or an environment that's conducive to improving student achievement.
So, can you help me, John, understand? You have a private Christian school, but it's not considered a charter school, if I'm correct, right?
Right.
So, what distinguishes your school from a charter school in being a private Christian school?
Charter schools operate in the space between the private school and the public school. They're kind of a hybrid. So they receive public funding. They receive, but they also receive some support from private sources of finance. Private schools operate primarily from private source of money. Okay. And a private Christian school is a private school that operates on a private source of funding, but just has a Christian worldview in the way we approach instruction and curriculum.
Okay, I better understand now. Antoine Green was recently in the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Antoine, can you speak a little bit about that article as it pertained to your movement right now with charter schools?
And so what basically that article did was kind of highlight what I've been working on quietly for quite some time in terms of trying to create an additional option for parents in Richmond City. Mm-hmm. Finally, I guess whatever you can say, the forces, begin to align. And me and Shanae Harmon, we decided to partner. I have been watching them for years. I've been watching, the genesis of their project, and finally, we, like I said, decided to join forces and really try to move that concept forward. Currently, there are no public middle schools in Richmond City that are accredited. All right, and so families parents, I want to say forced, but they have no other option but to send their child to a school that's not meeting.
Sounds really sad. You're telling me that there is not a public middle school in Richmond that's actually accredited.
Correct. Right. And so I'm just trying to work towards creating another option for parents who want to continue to send their child to a school within the public school space.
John,
being in your space, what do you see as the challenges that Antoine faces?
I mean, the glaring ones are going to be, of course, funding. Mm-hmm. Then there's the physical plant needs that middle school and high school kind of have similar needs in terms of athletic space, performing arts space. So having a physical plant that can meet the needs of that kind of program. And then the other thing is, and this may be the most challenging of all of them, given that Antoine has pointed out middle schools in Richmond are struggling to meet state standards. The students coming out of our public middle schools are so far behind academically. That's a challenge that we're currently struggling with. These students come to us. Our curriculum is a college preparatory program for middle school. And they come to us so far behind that there's no way that we can actually teach the curriculum that we have set for students. So we're teaching 7th grade transfer students how to read and how to do 3rd grade division. So there's no way I can teach this kid pre-algebra or algebra 1. They don't even know how to long divide.
I mean, that's very extreme. But, I recently came into this space and being a parent now of a child in elementary school. And my son's been in kindergarten. He was in public school. 3 years prior to that, he was in Christian private school, and he's now back in a Christian private school. And, I think as a parent, at least from my perspective, when we decided to put our child back into a Christian private school, it was because we wanted him to have more attention, more support, more focused attention. And because it was a Christian school, I went into it with the belief that the leaders within the school would use God and use, I don't know, God mainly, though. I thought that that God would be the stand, where things started, and they have expressed that that's the case. But my thing is that when you have a child that transitions in from public school to private school, and your private school has its curriculum requirements, and that's understood, you have to have those standards. how do you adjust when a kid hasn't had that experience but needs everything that your school can provide? And how do you adjust? Because what I'm learning in private schools is that because it's private, they have the creative control in determining how much they want to tolerate or not. But that's where I struggled, because I thought, but God, I'm thinking, but God, I mean, I feel like you're giving up. Are you giving up? Mm-hmm. No, it's not. You can make the point. But I think when parents put their children in school, I think that parents are thinking, this is a Christian school. They're going to get more support. They're going to, all the things that come with that. And I've learned that there's resistance sometimes. Mm-hmm. Because the private school has its curriculum, they have their expectations, and they're not always willing to accommodate a kid if there are some things that a kid needs. And it may just need more time, because you have to move with your curriculum.
Well, it's not just moving along with the curriculum. There's also the question of resources. Yes. Accommodating every student who requires an accommodation outside of the regular curriculum is an additional resource. Even if it is a time resource, that's a resource that must be paid for. Somebody's paying for that additional time. Mm-hmm. Somebody's paying for those additional curriculum pieces that are being provided to that student. And in a school like mine, that's designed to be economically accessible. Okay, so our parents are paying $7,000 a year. That includes before and after school care. You do the math on that for a second. All right. I don't have a lot of resources to be able to stretch that out to provide differentiation or extra resources to a student who's coming to us. We do the best we can, but we're extremely limited by the availability of resources.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the same answer I got. that's what I've learned. I just think it's different. I think that a lot of times when parents come into that situation, they don't realize they don't realize that part, because they see ratios being small, mm-hmm. and they see more attention, they see more support, mm-hmm. and they see that it's a Christian-based program. So therefore, they know that these individuals, their commitment to the kids and their commitment to God, it's going to be a good marriage. But I think as a parent, I've learned as a parent, and in talking to other parents, sometimes you face resistance in those situations when you think that you're going to get more from the school than really what you're going to get.
Right. You mentioned resources and how a lot of institutions on the K-12 level that primarily serve kids of color are under-resourced. That could also be said about HBCUs in terms of being under-resourced. We don't, at the end of the day, we don't have a strong philanthropic community within our community that steps up to fill that gap, to create opportunities for our young people. I mean, it's on the HBCU level, it's on the K-12 level. We just don't. So to that extent, a lot of our private institutions, from kindergarten all the way through your fourth year of college or your senior year of college, they don't provide the support that you probably would get at another institution. And I think that continues to be the great challenge.
You see the same thing actually play out in some of the public schools. I'm thinking of two public elementary schools in the city of Richmond right now, that because the parent base is able, a lot of the parents that attend, students who go to the school are wealthy. They decide what they want at their school, and if the city won't fund it, they fund it themselves. So we want our students to be able to learn Spanish. Well, the city can't fund a Spanish teacher. We'll pay for it. But those are the kinds of things that we see in a lot of our white friends in their environments. In our schools, we struggle because we don't have those folks who are making those gifts. I was out in Michigan with some other school administrators a couple of years ago, and One of the administrators we were at his school. He walks in, he's smiling, he sits down at the table, and we're all looking at him like, "Oh, what are you so happy about?" He reaches in his pocket and pulls out a $35,000 check. He was like, "I get one of these every month." Now, his, for schools like ours, we do the best we can with the small class size. There is a benefit to the small class size because your child is getting more attention in the instructional space. However, when there is a huge spectrum of students in the classroom, that's a huge challenge for a teacher. If I've got 5 kids, right? I have 2 kids right here who are advanced placement, a grade to 2 grades ahead. All right. Got another kid who's right on target. And then I've got another kid who is 5 years deficient. How do I allot my time in the classroom? Do I underserve these students who are advanced to catch this student up? Because now I'm giving them a disservice. So that's when we need additional resources, because this child needs to have someone else to work with them so that the other students can continue to move.
So how do you handle the argument of, but what am I paying you for? Okay, this is public school obviously is public school, and so I think a parent sometimes they have to get what they it's just what it is, right? But when it's a private school, I think that's where the parent comes from. That like, but I'm paying. Parents. I think parents sometimes feel like there's some privilege that should come with the fact that I'm paying. So you're going to give my child more support. You're going to figure it out. And when it's a Christian school, when all else fails, you can take it to God before you come back to me and tell me that you can't do it. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm playing a parent role.
I understand.
While I'm only playing a parent role while I'm dealing with you experts.
I mean, on one side of that argument, you have one of the things I have to continuously remind parents of: you're paying for a product, not an outcome. You're paying for quality of instruction. You're paying for reduced class size. And while you may not get all of the benefit that you think you ought to get out of it, you are getting some benefit out of it.
Yes.
And while I may not be able to get your kid from 3rd grade math to pre-algebra this year,
bars.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
They will be vastly improved.
Yes.
Now, where the spectrum is lower, we do catch students up. A kid that's 1 or 2 years behind, we can work with that student and we make accommodations, even if that's after school time, before school time. Teachers are really passionate about what they do, and you'll find that in any school. Nobody goes into education because they're making bank. People go into education because they believe in what they're doing and they love the children. So there's always that flexibility with teachers, but there's only so much that can be done. And then the backside of that also is, even in a private space, I can't even imagine what it's like in a public space. Like you were saying, well, you get the statement, well, I'm paying for this, right? Well, in a lot of situations, we get that sentiment, but the subtext is, I'm paying for this. I shouldn't have to do nothing. You should do this for me. Produce the outcome. Meanwhile, prime example, I had a 4th grade parent whose child is struggling with some subjects at school. She asked for a conference with me and the teacher. Me, teacher, principal were sitting there. And the parent said, I think it's ridiculous that I should have to check her homework every night. What am I paying y'all for? Another instance, child is struggling in math, another grade. Principal says to the parent, she really needs additional tutoring in order for her to be able to catch up to where she needs to be. Parent's response, I'm not paying for tutoring and private school. What do I pay y'all for?
Yeah, I'm learning that from my kids' teachers, just because my son and I and my wife, we spend a couple hours every evening. Mm-hmm. We have to. We spend that time because he has homework every day. Mm-hmm. But the focus is, but do we need to spend time correcting or readdressing? Mm-hmm. And depending on his day, mm-hmm. it's going to depend on the time. Mm-hmm. But it is an extended commitment, and my teacher, his teacher tells me a lot of time that every parent doesn't do what you guys are doing.
That's right.
And it's hard to understand sometimes how you could not. Now, I talk to, coworkers that their kids are, doing phenomenal in school. However, and right now it's probably just coming easy to them. Mm-hmm. They don't have the same they don't necessarily put the same work ethic in every single day, but the kids are doing well. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like there's no pain, no gain. You have to put in the work. You have to grind. You have to teach your kids how to study. And what I've learned as a parent is that we don't send our people who send their kids to school and expect the school to teach them everything they know. They're failing their children.
I wish I could give you a trophy right now, my friend. I would love to give you a trophy, bro.
See that trophy over there, my wife.
Yeah, I need to. You got another one coming from Bibbs.
Hey man, but that's real. I mean, part of the reason why we chose a private Christian program is because of the benefits of additional Christian education that maybe they can provide in a better way. Yeah.
Give them a greater foundation.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about the Christian education piece, though, there's a few things that make a Christian education unique. One is, for us at Richmond Prep, there's a theological concept called the Imago Dei. And that is that all human beings are made in the image of God. They bear the imprint of God in them in some way that is unique to them and them only. So we treat every child that way. That's one. But when you flow down from that, there's a set of values that are there. Right. And a lot of times when parents choose a Christian school, they choose the Christian school because they like the academic outcomes and they make assumptions about the value set, but they don't necessarily evaluate their own alignment with those values. So when you look at the values of a Christian school, and when that comes down to things like work ethic, that comes down to things like personal responsibility, all these kinds of things, a lot of parents don't align. And so you find tension. Yeah, there's tension there.
In charter schools, is there any emphasis on spirituality, religion at all? Can't be. Public school. And so in public school, in the public society that we live in, we are a part of the public. Public sees us right now. We're in the public, right? We're all public. Mm-hmm. God's public too.
Yep. He's with us all the time.
Is God ever going to be welcome into our public society of school?
I think at one time he was. Yeah.
Do you see that changing?
No.
No time soon.
I don't see it changing at all. You live in a post-truth society. Yeah. God is truth.
Post-truth society.
Yeah.
That's hashtag worthy. Post-truth society. It's real though. We live in a place where it's about likes, following, and it's fake. It is.
But we listen to the terminology though. My truth.
My.
Yeah. Alternative facts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These kinds of concepts. We are in a society now where truth is all subjective.
Yes.
So it's all subjective. It's all my feelings. In fact, you even listen to the language people use when they talk, as in the way they process things. You don't hear this phrase a lot. I think. What you hear? I feel like. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So our society has moved to this place where we're not even willing to look into whether something is true or not. It's just how I feel about it.
Based on emotion.
Yeah.
What do you think?
And that's why that's what Trump understands.
Yeah.
Bam. And that's so true on so many different levels. So many levels. That's so wide. It's so broad in terms of how deep that actually goes. But yeah.
What do you think that could change that? Because we have to start by using our brains and thinking about it. Like, it starts with thinking. Something has to be able to change that. We have to continue to be hopeful. on behalf of improving society and by improving society, it starts with our youth. And so when you think about the school system, I'm going to just put it out there like this. If an elected official who was in ministry and very passionate about, maybe had a former background as a school board member, it's going to take somebody to introduce it into legislation. I'm assuming. Is that correct? You think?
Introducing what?
Well, we bringing in. I'm not saying when I say God. What I'm saying is giving everyone the equal opportunity to choose a direction,
Right. Gotcha.
but based off education. Learn first, it's not even a time that we've existed in. But I think that school is a place where education starts. Can Christianity or Buddhism or whatever, Muslim, whatever you believe, can that not come into the place? Because this is the thing. Let me make this one point before you say that. Because this is the thing. From a Christian education standpoint, and I've had this conversations with my wife and a lot of other people, I'm not sure what kind of churches you came up in, okay? But there's a lot of people who came up in churches when the Christian education that they gained came from somebody who wasn't able to probably get a job in any other area. Now, I'm not trying to be overly stereotypical and judgmental, but sometimes the Bible school teachers, the Sunday school teachers, they were the support to the church. They was also the ladies who cleaned the church and did everything in the church. Did they have jobs? Not always. And when you look at the reasons why they didn't have jobs, if you look at them closely, and I'm not talking about you guys, but there's people out there who can relate to this. They didn't have jobs because they couldn't get any jobs. There wasn't any jobs out there for them. They wasn't qualified. But they're qualified because of their relationship with the pastor in the church to provide a Christian education and lead children the wrong way based off their interpretations. Mm-hmm. So that happens in the church. Why can't there not be an accredited system within the education space where children can get an education that has been approved upon in Christian within religious spaces?
Right.
I know I threw a lot out there, but
it's. I think from if you can make it strictly or very specific, I guess from an education perspective, I'm teaching you about the various religions.
Yeah.
I think that's possible.
In college, I took religion. Did you take religion? Which I was required to.
Yeah, we took Judaic studies or something.
Yeah, so it's appropriate at that level.
Yes,
it's an option.
Right. It's an option.
And I'm saying maybe it's an option. I'm not saying it has to be mandatory, but if the school don't even introduce it to you.
I agree. You might not never ever learn or might not ever be exposed to.
Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes the reason and choice that parents specifically say, hey, look, you're going to probably learn more about this at school than you are from me. Right. So some parents send their kids to specific school for specific reasons.
Right.
And some parents send their kids to Christian schools and they don't believe in Christianity. Yeah, I've got Muslim kids. I've got atheist kids. But when they come to my school, this is what we teach.
I wouldn't just assume that, though. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right. You were saying a moment ago about the disconnect between what the kids learning and the values, and when they go home and their parents, it's not aligned.
Wow.
Parents doing everything and saying everything.
Ooh, man.
I've learned in school, you know what I'm saying? So the kid like, wait a minute. Mm-hmm.
Man, I would have never thought that.
Yeah. But
go ahead.
I was just saying, that happens in general. Just how can I say this example? We know of instances that we hear about through the media, not that I know anyone personally, where a person who's a pastor is one way, and when and his child sees him that one way.
Oh yeah, but he beats his wife when he gets home.
And he's doing everything else,
smoking dope, crack, everything else.
The ball,
yeah,
everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's always, it's going to be that potentially that disconnect.
Yeah.
People not being consistent with who they are,
yeah,
and what they claim to represent.
Ooh, let me ask you, educational leaders.
Jonathan is the educational leader.
Sir, you're an educational leader.
Right? Don't even do that, dog.
You know what? I'm not. You know,
Don't even be that guy right now.
He is too.
no, he's not right. But from a more of a practice standpoint, he's that guy.
But we're not. But everything ain't about practice. Because you out there, when you out there in the community and you're trying to open a school, and you have
Right.
your practice, that's game time.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. But yeah, okay.
I mean, so when we look at leadership, look, you can lead people in the door just as easily as you can lead them out the door. You can lead people up, down. You can lead people to heaven and hell. All right, and you lead people in a different way.
Right.
So both of you all are respective leaders. When I introduced you as an education reform specialist, you looked at me. You know, but a lot of people don't understand what that is. First off, when I grew up, I never had a black teacher until I didn't have a black teacher in elementary school, personally. I didn't. Okay, and I think there's other people out there like me. I know that there is, because there was people in my class. You guys are special in the fact that, Richmond has a strong black population, okay? So it's more common. But if you think about America, you guys are rare. We're talking about an executive director, an executive leader of a private Christian-based program that's been over 20 years, going on probably 30 years. 35 years, stun on them. You know what I'm saying? And you have created your own lane. It's not a lot of black men that's done that. I would say that the 1,000-some followers I have on Facebook that's watching right now, I know one guy that's a principal. Chad Mans, but outside I don't know a lot of them. Denise. I have a couple friends. I have a few friends. I can count on one hand that are in your lanes. So I think that's to be respected, because it sets it provides a model for young black men and young black girls and people of color to say that I can do that too. So you are a leader, man.
I never said I wasn't a leader.
You can't. You're a leader. You just lead in a different way.
Yeah. Real talk. Yeah.
It takes a combination of both for your leadership styles and your areas of expertise to ultimately transform to improve education.
Absolutely.
But no one ever answered my question to, are we ever going to allow God into the public school system or spirituality? Never. It's just, can we answer it?
Yeah, you got it.
I'm asking you.
No, I don't. I would love to see it. Yes, personally, yes, but I don't see it. I don't see it happening in our lifetime.
I'm just saying that we are in this life right now to be the change makers and difference makers of this time. Yes. And if it's going to happen, at minimum, it starts by having a conversation.
I agree.
And so it's an awkward conversation when you record it and you're on the spot.
Right.
But that's the whole purpose of the podcast, to bring perspective, to create the idea, the thought, and to begin sending people that are thinking, before I drop my son off at school this morning, we're gonna do the Lord's Prayer. Before he walks in the door. Right. It starts there. He walks in the door, and teacher says, "Hey, how you doing, Antoine?" Da da da. You're happy. You're full of spirit.
I agree. Like you were saying a moment ago. It's so. Just having Christian values, or just having values in which you have faith or believe in someone or something else that's higher and bigger than you. I think is a good foundation to have for any human being that exists. I don't care who you are, where you live. Now the fact that a lot of kids or a lot of people coming up, they don't receive that at home. And if they don't receive it at home and they're not receiving it in school, the question is, where do they ever receive it? You understand what I'm saying? And so that goes to your point. Will we ever get to a point, where we can incorporate that into what kids are learning, along with the other subjects and things they need to learn?
I think this is a good segue, because John said something just now that stood out. John was dropping some jewels over here. Yeah. He really was. I feel like, if John's to my son's principal, I got to listen. Because I'll be throwing these type of things. I'll be talking to my principal, my son's principal all the time, or leader, all the time. He said, we focus on the product, not the outcome. Well, you work toward the outcome, but it's more about the product. That's where that stood out to me. So I want you to think about product and outcome real quick, okay? When I was in college, I did research on the educational outcomes of black students versus black students and white students that graduated from schools in Appalachia versus HBCUs and big public schools. And I learned a lot of things. Did you know that in higher education and HBCUs, the majority of professors are not people of color? That's just an example, and that was surprising research for me to find out. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that's surprising for you all, but with this research, what I found interesting is this: you guys are leaders in the education space. I'm asking because I don't know the answer. I want to create content here, okay? From a perspective standpoint, assessment tools, okay, training, instruction, teaching, all these things, okay, that work to contribute toward the outcome. The preparation that goes into that, are you all familiar with how culturally inclusive that is? Mm-hmm. Because these people are dictating and determining how we're going to train and educate youth of all different types of cultures. Mm-hmm. And I'm keeping it in the realm of culture because this is a culture-based podcast. So everything, when we're thinking about education, we have to be culturally inclusive. We have to be aware. Mm-hmm. You all have any insight you can provide to that?
I think it's improving. Society as a whole is at least paying lip service to wanting to diversify itself and to pay more attention to diversity. I do think that we need to be careful when we start to think about diversity and how we do things like assessments, how we do things like instruction. Because if you aren't careful, what the end game will be separate expectations, and with separate expectations, one will be less than other. So there is a danger of over diversifying. But I do think it's important that educators are trained to be culturally sensitive, to have a historical framework for understanding the kids who are in front of them in the classroom. But we need to be careful about this push toward diversity and trying to make everything kind of cookie cutter. I tell my students at the school all the time, listen, I'm preparing you for the road. I'm not trying to prepare the road for you. And we need to make sure that that's the mindset that we're using when we're approaching instruction. We don't want our kids to become we don't want them to be softened, so to speak, because we've created a system that's so tailored to them that they can't function in a world that's not tailored to them at all.
When I went to Philadelphia, I was amazed by all the charter schools. Mm-hmm. They have specific emphasis in science and math, mm-hmm. and some of those schools have the best basketball teams also. Mm-hmm. It's crazy to me how in Virginia that's not seen as an attractive thing.
Talk to him, Antoine. Talk to him.
It's like I'm having to pull him out the state.
I've been at this thing for over 10 years, mm-hmm. right? And like you said, I've had an opportunity to visit other states and visit charter schools. North Carolina, had a chance. D.C., been to Philly charter schools. So Baltimore, so in Anne and Wandale County. So I've been to charter schools all up and down the East Coast. But they're, for some reason, to the north of us, 93 miles in D.C., in D.C., you have as many kids that are enrolled in charter schools as it is in the traditional public schools. North Carolina, they have tens of thousands of students in North Carolina that are enrolled in charters. But that state in the middle between D.C. and North Carolina, we have less than 10.
Wow.
So it begs the question, what are they doing in D.C. and what are they doing in North Carolina that we're not doing here? And why haven't we been able to kind of identify and recognize that we can learn and we can benefit from some of the innovations that they are pushing and that they are implemented, and that is educating kids and preparing kids for the future in DC and in North Carolina. And I think it continues. The biggest reason continues to be political. But at the end of the day, from a standpoint, a person who understands politics, I mean, it isn't your job, if you're competing for office, whether you're Republican or Democrat, to propose policies, education policies that will better prepare young people for the future. You understand what I'm saying? And so why are we on, I guess, want to say on this bandwagon, or why are we on this train that so many kids throughout this country, that looks like a lot of kids, specifically in Richmond, are benefiting from? It is mind-boggling that in the capital city of Virginia, Richmond, we only have one.
It's crazy.
One charter school.
Let me ask you this, Antoine. Better yet, it's not asking you. I think as the leader in this space, tell us, tell them, what can we do to improve the situation?
Right. And so, as was the case to a certain extent with Patrick Henry, I think at the end of the day, it's going to have to be a movement of parents, but along with other stakeholders.
We need parents listening right now.
Yeah, but primarily parents, because they're the most vested, they have the most at stake. It is their kids, not Antoine. Antoine don't have any kids. It is their kids that will ultimately benefit from having a different, more 21st century education experience. You understand what I'm saying? And so I need parents to really be at the forefront of this movement and really advocating for their children and the future of their children.
For those of you out there who are interested, please contact me if you want to get in touch with Antoine Green. Yeah. And if you're a parent, because he is trying to create a forum for parents to be able to use their voice right now. Right. And on behalf of the needs that their children have, and create that environment.
Absolutely. Dr. Bibbs said a moment ago, it is our job to prepare your child for the road, not to prepare the road.
Yes.
That is so true. You understand? And so the question is, what road are we really preparing our children for? Are we really preparing them for a road that's going to allow them to really compete for the opportunities that this world is moving in? And it's moving so fast that they're not going to be able to take advantage of them, given the current education design, given what they're currently getting out of our traditional public schools.
I think too. The state of education in this country is just another an extension of what's wrong with our infrastructure in general. We're still on this 1950s model. All right, everything was. The American social contract was basically we're going to educate you up to the point that the economy needs. We're educating you to meet the economic needs of the society. Mm-hmm. So up until 1950, it was great. We put you in high school. You graduate from high school. You've gotten some technical know-how. You took wood shop. You learned how to work on a car. You can go get yourself a full-time job at this factory, work for 30 years, get your pension. You're a great American.
Professional Americans.
But what has happened since 1950, and it's the same story that's happened to all of American infrastructure. We failed to keep up with the changes that have happened over time, and now we're at a stage. And me and Antoine had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. Now we're at a stage where we've got this big ocean liner. That's your traditional education system, your public education system, right? And the rest of the world has moved this way quickly. And we're trying to turn this great big ocean liner 40 degrees east. Well, that takes a while with the ocean liner. But these charter schools are speedboats. They just go.
Right. Exactly.
But meanwhile, the ocean liner is still. We're not even making any progress. We're just trying to look over there.
Right. Real talk. And that's really what's at stake. That's exactly what E-Terms have said. And the longer we're waiting for that ocean liner to move, the further behind, the further disadvantage children of color is going to be as relates to being able to attain some real prosperity and really be able to have the opportunity to participate in this greater economy. We talk about the haves and have-nots. We talk about this widening this widening wealth gap. It's only going to get worse. It's going to get worse because we're not prepared and we're waiting for that ocean liner to turn. I'm at a point now, I can't wait for that ocean liner to turn.
Ready to jump off the boat and swim.
We don't have time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm super passionate about this because I'm looking at it and I'm like, ain't nobody else see the same damn thing I see? Mm-hmm. These kids are going to be lost.
Yep.
Lost. He just told you a moment ago how kids come to Richmond Prep at a deficit.
Third.
5 grades damn behind.
That's crazy.
So technically speaking, I go through Richmond Public Schools. I get to 12th grade. I'm not on the 12th grade level as in other schools.
Like
I'm really on the 7th grade
There you
level,
go.
8th grade level. And
Yep.
so what skills do I have? I don't have any real skills. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm reduced to a job that allows me to live maybe paycheck to paycheck.
If that.
maybe.
That's that maybe, right? But that's
By
because-
living in difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
Too.
Right, yes, but yeah, different, and that's even more the reason why we got to get this damn education thing right. We got to get it right because they're gonna keep perpetuating the same damn cycle, and we're gonna be, yes.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, when I got to Hampton, I graduated from Huguenot High School, class of '99. I got to Hampton on a presidential scholarship, good SAT scores. I get to Hampton, and I'm in these honors classes, right? And there's cats in here who came from other schools where they was getting C's. But I'm walking in flexing.
Yeah.
Straight A student, son. Like, but these kids with C's were eating my lunch in class because they had to work for their C's. I didn't have to work for my A's. And so much of what we see is not just a lack of instruction. That's a part of the issue. The biggest issue that we see is these children have not been equipped to do work. They're not being taught how to work through difficult things. They're not being taught, hey, yeah, I understand that algebra is hard. Yeah, I know you don't like it. And I'm pretty sure you got a bunch of questions on this quiz wrong. That does not mean you don't take algebra. That means you get your butt in the room and you practice and you study harder. That's what that means. And kids come to us with these big deficiencies. A lot of times where we have to start is let's back up and look at what your values are. Let's start there. We need to talk about what your work ethic looks like. Because if you don't have a work ethic, I don't care how good of an instructor I am. I can only motivate you for the time you're in front of my face. You know, that's the big thing. I think that as it pertains to the larger public school environment, I think that we have to find ways to, and the whole charter school movement is kind of the template for this, but we have to find ways to decentralize control of the schools. That's why it's an ocean liner, right? Because it's too big. It's unmanageable, and every school has its own individual needs. So I cannot come in and implement a Richmond Prep curriculum, Richmond Prep values, Richmond Prep instructional philosophy on every school in this city, because every school has unique needs, and you can't do that top down. You need to give your principals some control here. First of all, you need to hire competent principals. We have a lot of schools in our city that the principals just aren't able to manage. That's one. That's not their skill set. They were fantastic instructors. So they maybe need to be an instructional specialist or something like that, but they're not a principal, because a principal is more chief operating officer than educator. You've got to get some principals who know how to manage their building, know the unique needs of their students, and can use the funds that come to the school for that. You know, it's not always, the answer is not always we need more dollars. That's not always so. We got the city who's spending about $15,000 per year on a kid. You got Chesterfield County schools that's spending about $7,500 per year per kid. Look at the outcomes. Okay. So if it's a money issue, why are the outcomes over here like this and the outcomes over here like this? So there's a few more issues in here. There's something in there that we're not looking at. And that's not to say that schools can't use more money. Every school can use more money. You never get to a point where it's like, hey, we've got it all. Every school needs more money, but we do need to do a better job with the funds that are coming in and making sure they actually get down to the students and not in foolishness.
You're getting gems here. You're getting gems from Dr. Bibbs.
Real gems.
This is good. This is a real good conversation. Look, thank both of you. I really appreciate both of you guys coming in. We're wrapping up here close to on our time. You all have been tuning in to the Randy Wilson podcast. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Libsyn, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, you name it. We're on all podcast channels. So please continue to support us. Episode 4 is coming very soon as well. Thank you guys. I really appreciate both of you for your participation. This has been a really good conversation. Before we end, though, I want to make sure that I put highlight into the fact that Dr. Bibbs over here has really had a amazing music career, and the reason why I want to say that is because last podcast I was with Anthony Morrow. He's a former NBA basketball player, 9-10 years in the NBA for OKC and New Jersey Nets. It's where he's played for a few teams, but that's where he's known at, right? And when I was talking to him, we was talking about, the group of guys in the room. Everybody had hoop dreams as a kid. Most people had hoop dreams. They wanted to do one or the other. They wanted to rap or they wanted to ball, right? I mean, so I say that because when you've been able to say that I've been on the stage, I've rocked the mic with Music Soul Child, Avant, I've been involved with the Clips. I mean, that's something from our generation standpoint that all of us can't say. So we applaud you, sir, for your accolades in the music industry. And
thanks,
can you kind of just fill us in on what you're currently focused on as it pertains to music right now?
Right now, I'm actually tomorrow. I'm working on a worship album with a band tomorrow, and here soon I plan to start working on some more stuff for myself. But I'm starting to pick up a little bit more on the performance side. For a while, I got completely immersed in Richmond Prep stuff, and I'm kind of poking my head back out right now, kind of looking around and getting my feelers back out into the music world to do some more things. So around the city, I'm doing some performances, so check that out. And then if you're a Christian, check out some of this Christian music. Even if you're not, check it out because it's dope anyway. And then some of my traditional soulful R&B stuff, I look to have some more stuff out later in this year.
For all those listening, please check out John Bibbs. John, can you give them your social media handles or let them know how they can learn more about your music?
Yeah, you can find me on any site, on any social media at
any. You hear that? Any. Google, Yahoo, it don't matter.
Just JONBIBBS. That's it.
Man, the name says it all. He don't need a hashtag. He don't need a mark. He don't need a comma. It's only one John Bibbs. So for all of those listening, please go check out John Bibbs. Check out his music. I know there's a lot of people listening and following right now. And if you're not aware, then you need to go to YouTube. Just go right now. Go check them out. Both of you again. Thank you. Appreciate you. This is episode 3 of the Randy Wilson podcast, being produced by my main man, Kaiser Score. Terrell, we have some big things coming up, so continue to check us out, and we look forward to seeing you all and talking to you during episode 4.
Word.